Today is our Lolly's 10th birthday. I always make the cake myself. It'll be far too big just for the two of us. Well, three of us if you count Tina. Tina is our Lolly's best mate, only she's imaginary. Bill, my husband, he doesn't hold with imaginary friends. He says it's unhealthy. He won't be here today. I thought about asking him. I mean, he is a dad after all. But I don't want him to spoil it. Not again. Not like last year.
Ellen was only 18 when I met her. She was working on the till at a big department store in town. I'd gone in to buy some new shirts. That smile. It was her eyes that smiled, all warm and sparkly. I was bewitched before I'd even spoken to her.
I knew he liked me. He came in every Saturday to buy shirts. It was nice that he didn't try to hit on me. He was sweet, shy, and he was a proper man in his mid-20s, not like the gobby young lads I was used to.
I'd stand in that queue for ages sometimes, letting people go in front of me just to make sure it was her that served me. One Saturday, before I left the house, my mum said that I'd got so many shirts she didn't think she needed to do my laundry for 6 months. I decided it was about time I plucked up the courage to speak to her, Ellen.
Next, please. Good afternoon, sir. Oh, no shirt today?
No shirt.
Well, how can I help, sir? Only if you don't mind me saying, you seem to be empty-handed.
I was terrified. She was laughing at me. But then somehow I plucked up the courage to look at her face. That lovely, kind face. And I knew she wasn't being cruel. Mind you, I was still dumbstruck.
He was scared of me? I thought that was adorable. I mean, it was obvious that he was out of my league, really. I finish at 4.
Oh, do you? That's 5 minutes. Of course, I knew very well that she finished at 4 on a Saturday. That's why I always came in at this time, hoping I might be brave enough to ask her to go for a coffee with me in the cafe up on the first floor.
So, are you going to ask me to go for a coffee or something? We could go to the cafe upstairs.
I'd really like that. Will you? I mean, will you come for a coffee with me?
Oh, sugar, my supervisor's coming. Yes, sir. You'll find the cafe up on the first floor. Take the escalator and turn left, and it's right there in front of you. And get me a slice of cake, will you? I'm starving. I'll be with you in 5 minutes.
When I realised that she was as keen as I was, well, I wished I'd asked her weeks before.
At last, he actually looked at me properly, and he spoke. I'd only ever heard him say please and thank you. Oh, he had a lovely voice, all warm and melty. And he talked nice. I mean, he spoke nicely. Not dead posh-like, but, well, just nice. I wondered what someone like him could possibly see in me. Oh, tar very much. Carrot cake, it's my favourite. How did you guess?
It's my favourite too.
You want some?
No thanks, I'm not hungry. Anyway, I bought it for you. I didn't know how she could eat. I could never eat in front of someone I'd only just met. I'd be scared of dropping crumbs in my lap or getting cream on my face. And here she was, Ellen, talking with a mouthful. I admired her for it. She was fearless and self-assured. Some people would have called her unsophisticated.
His mother called me unsophisticated.
But she was honest, uncomplicated.
Well, that was very kind of you. What's your name?
Bill.
Bill? That's a good, strong name. Did you know it means protector?
No, I didn't, but I like it. And your name's Ellen.
How did you know?
It's on your badge.
Oh, yeah.
And what does Ellen mean?
Sunlight. I'm a little ray of sunshine.
That you are. It's a perfect name for you. And that's how we met. It might not be the most romantic story to tell the grandchildren, but I fell in love over that cup of coffee.
We were kindred spirits.
I'd found my soulmate. And we knew we were destined to be together. And I did want to be her protector. It seemed right when she said that about my name. Like that was my purpose in life, to protect that precious ray of sunshine.
He worked in finance. Do you know, even after 20 years of marriage, I've no idea what that really means, what he actually does. We always had better things to talk about. Often we didn't need to talk. We understood each other so well that we could sit in silence for hours. All I know about working in finance is it meant he wore good suits Monday to Friday. He looked really handsome in a suit. He wore a suit the day he met my parents.
I was nervous about meeting her parents. I was the best part of a decade older than Ellen. I thought they might think I was a cradle snatcher.
My family really liked him, even me dad, and that's saying something, 'cause my dad's a miserable old fart. He's even been known to find fault with Mother Teresa. Bill's mother, Lorraine, didn't approve of me. She didn't think I was good enough for Bill. If I did something like bake a cake, she'd always make some little dig about how I could have done it better. I'm making her sound like a right cow.
And she's not.
Not really.
I'm her only child. She's just a bit overprotective.
She was a single parent. Not by accident. Oh no, not her. She'd planned to get pregnant and chose her victim carefully. Bill
I never knew
knew
my
his
dad. Mum was a career woman, a businesswoman. She was a meticulous planner. Nothing was left to chance.
When she met my parents, she said they were the salt of the earth. That was a bit patronising.
She meant they were decent, hard-working people.
She meant she was surprised they were decent and hard-working. When she found out I was from the Westgate estate, she expected my family to be a bunch of thieving toe rags.
Mum meant well. She never meant to be insulting.
I wasn't insulted. Not really.
Ellen always looked for the best in people. Always forgave them. Always bit her tongue when Mum said something a little bit offensive.
Well, she must be all right, really, Lorraine. She'd given me my lovely Bill, hadn't she? She was just having a bit of trouble handing him over.
Ellen's family were worried about how serious we were. Her mum thought she was too young to settle down. She said that she should be going out having fun with her friends, spreading her wings, playing the field.
I lost touch with my friends pretty quickly. I didn't want to be with anyone but Bill. Our relationship was all-consuming, passionate, perfect.
It was months before we made love. I wanted her to know that I respected her, so we took it slowly.
I'd have slept with him on that first date. But he was a gentleman, so I waited for him to make all the moves. He didn't half take his time about it. It took him 2 weeks to kiss me.
Every night we'd stand on the doorstep.
And we'd lean a little bit closer.
And I enjoyed teasing her, making her wait for that first kiss. I watched the desire in her eyes grow more urgent every evening. In a way, I never wanted to kiss her, because I didn't want to end the thrill of that anticipation.
That first kiss, it was sweet and tender. I'd never been kissed like that before.
I knew in that moment that I held her heart in my hands.
I worshipped him.
I knew I held complete power over her. Not that I ever abused it. I was delighted to be so adored. I held her heart carefully, treasured it, protected it.
I liked being
her
my protector. Not that I needed protecting. I was more worldly wise than him.
She thought she was more worldly wise than me. But there was always something fragile about her. When I look back now, I realise she was always slightly removed from the real world.
It was another 3 weeks before he got round to a proper snog.
And a few months later, when we made love.
Finally, I thought he was going to make me wait until the wedding night.
I was going to make her wait until the wedding night, but I didn't have that much willpower. So, when we finally made love, it was heavenly.
Spiritual.
She was my ethereal sunbeam.
I wished he'd been the first. Round my way, if you still had your virginity by the time you were 17, it meant you were a right minger. So, at 16 years and 11 months, I started seeing rampant Ricky from 2 streets away. It only lasted a few weeks, but it got the job done. I could officially hold my head high in public. I was officially a non-minger.
I was glad I wasn't her first. I don't think I'd have been able to deflower that goddess. Her parents were worried that I'd get her pregnant.
But we were careful, sensible. Not that I'd have minded.
But I never wanted her to feel that I'd had to marry her. Of course, none of us knew then how difficult it would be for us to have a child. We were married just after Ellen turned 20.
Everyone thought I was too young to get married. But we proved them wrong. Well, until the accident anyway. In the spare bedroom, we had a wardrobe full of Bill's shirts. He never wore them. I said he should take them to the charity shop. I thought it was wicked just to have them hanging there when someone less fortunate could make good use of them. But he said every one of those shirts is special.
This one. This is the one I bought the very first time I saw her. And this one. This is my favourite. This is from the day that, as she gave me my change, her fingers accidentally brushed mine. It was a fleeting moment, but I wanted to leap across the counter and ravish her right there. It's probably just as well I was a bit timid back then.
Soft, really. And where are we going to put all those shirts when we need room for our babies?
I'll find somewhere, or we'll move to a bigger house.
Bill wanted lots of kids. I think it was because he was an only child. He didn't want our baby to grow up lonely like he had. And maybe he didn't want me clinging to an only child the way his mother had with him. I didn't mind. I'd have done anything to please him.
I knew she'd have a football team if she thought it would make me happy. But things don't always work out the way you plan them, do they?
9 years we waited.
Ellen wouldn't go to see the doctor. She said it would happen if it was meant to.
When it was meant to.
She always had faith that it would happen. I thought that odd. She was an atheist, but she had such a strong belief in providence. She did say that if she wasn't pregnant by the time she was 30, then we'd go to the doctors.
Just in case Destiny forgot she was supposed to be giving us a baby.
Then one day, when I was 29. Are you sure?
Yeah, 10 weeks.
I couldn't believe it after all that time. And it didn't matter if we only had the one. I was just thankful that at last we could have a family. and she was born a few months later, healthy and happy.
Our little miracle.
We called her Lorraine,
After
my
his mum.
It means gracious laurel.
I know what it means. It's also linked to Joan of Arc. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did know that. I wasn't going to mention it.
I don't want our little girl charging around battlefields and becoming a martyr.
I won't let her. We won't let her. I knew she didn't really like it, but I knew that she'd agree just because it was what I wanted.
Strange name for a baby. I'm sure there's never been a baby born that looked like a Lorraine. But I thought she'd probably grow into it. Bill said we could call her Lolly, and I liked that. Lolly suited her.
I was so proud. My perfect wife had given me a perfect daughter. We had a perfect family.
A perfect life. And me and Bill, in all those years, we never argued once. Not even after the accident.
Especially not after the accident.
Well, we did argue once, last year, on Lolly's 9th birthday.
I didn't want to argue with you.
That heart he protected so tenderly in his hand. My heart. He squeezed it tighter and tighter until it was dry and shriveled and brittle.
I never meant to hurt you.
He made me choose. He made me choose between me husband and me daughter.
I didn't want to.
To choose between the man I adored, the man I trusted for 20 years, and our beautiful little girl.
I just wanted her back. I just wanted my lovely wife back. But we can never go back. After Lolly was born, Ellen went back to work part-time.
Just a couple of evenings a week.
I said she didn't need to. I earned enough to keep us warm and fed. She said it wasn't fair that I worked so hard. She said she wanted to contribute financially. But really, I know it was her way of sharing Lolly, allowing me some time with my daughter.
I had to let him have some time alone with Lolly. If I was there, I held her all the time. I was jealous if anyone else picked her up.
I loved those 2 evenings a week with Lolly. And I loved Ellen even more for being so thoughtful and generous.
I haven't worked since the accident. I want to. I don't like scrounging on the sick. But every time I see a knocky health doctor, they slap "not fit for work" across my file.
It's Lolly's 10th birthday today. I'd like to go round there, but I don't think Ellen will let me in.
I keep myself busy in the house. There's always something to do, isn't there? It's Bill, sending his love and asking if I want him to come round. Get stuff. Oh, where's the F on this thing? Is that a bit harsh? Okay, clear. He moved back in with his mum. My birthday cake's better than his mum's.
Everything Ellen baked was better than my mum's. Of course, I've never told Mum that. No thanks. Well, I suppose it's better than get stuffed. I'll call her Mum later, after work. That's how I keep an eye on her. Ellen doesn't know. It would upset her if she thought her mum was reporting everything to me.
Every 2 weeks, Bill went to church with his mum. I never went. Except on Christmas Day.
She'd sing louder than anyone, Ellen the atheist, so joyful. And after the service, she liked to walk through the graveyard and study the lives of all those dead people.
Not in a morbid way. I like looking at other people's history. I'm nosy, I suppose.
Mum used to go home to prepare our Christmas dinner.
I liked that time on Christmas Day. Just the two of us.
She'd walk me round there for ages in the cold. Her face would be all pink and fresh and glowing against the December frost, and her hand would be all warm and safe in mine.
It was romantic.
She liked simple pleasures.
Our Lolly was christened at that church.
And Ellen didn't mind spending time talking to the vicar and going to church more regularly. She was the most selfless person I've ever met, putting my beliefs before hers.
I was happy to have our Lolly christened. I saw it like her insurance policy with heaven. You know, just in case I was wrong about God.
She was always creating things, beautiful things carved from her love, like a mat made from scraps of material.
He means a rag rug.
Or a chalk drawing of me or Lolly.
He means pastel portraits.
Or an embroidered cushion cover.
Yeah, you're right, embroidery.
She wouldn't let me look at them until they were finished, and she never told me when her latest project was finished.
I used to just put them somewhere, hanging on the wall or sat on a shelf and wait to see if he noticed. Of course,
I always noticed. It was lovely to come home from work and find a little token full of her radiance, her sunshine. She built a magical little world in our house. It was a sanctuary from reality. It was like a bubble full of Sunbeam. And as soon as Lolly was old enough to sit up, Ellen had her involved in all those creations.
He never complained when he came home and the house was littered with glue and glitter and sequins.
Why would I complain? I was delighted by it. I knew every evening when I walked in the house, I was guaranteed to be welcomed by two smiling, adoring faces. I was the luckiest man alive.
I wasn't very organised. Some people would have called me chaotic.
My mother called her chaotic.
Well, I was really, wasn't I?
No, you were spontaneous.
Lorraine said I needed a routine, a schedule. You know, like pork chops on a Monday, chicken casserole on a Tuesday, that kind of thing. She brought me round some menu planners and to-do lists. Bill ripped them up. He told Lorraine not to try and change me.
I didn't want pork chops every Monday. I liked coming home and never knowing whether she'd prepared a 3-course feast or whether she'd say,
"Don't take your shoes off. Run up the chippy for us, will you?"
She never made any of her creations again after the accident.
How could I? How could I make beautiful things when I was so ugly on the inside?
Except on Lolly's birthday.
Somehow, for Lolly, I've always managed to find a little shard of beauty buried inside me. Just enough to spend one day creating pretty sparkly things for her party. Oh, and of course, to bake the cake.
When Lolly was 3, Ellen talked about homeschooling her. I was worried about it. I didn't want Lolly to be locked away in a Sunbeam world. She was lonely, I could see it. She wanted to play with other children.
I worried about her playing with other children. Every Sunday we'd go to the park and Bill used to make me sit quietly on a bench while Lolly went into the play area. The other kids were boisterous and our Lolly was a dainty, gentle little thing.
Our dainty little daughter was the queen of that play area on a Sunday, bossing the other kids around.
She even had them including Tina in their games.
I didn't mind about Tina, the imaginary friend, but I didn't encourage it. Not like Ellen did.
It was cute. When I gave Lolly a treat, like a chocolate biscuit, she always asked for an extra one for Tina.
I just thought if Lolly had real friends to play with, she wouldn't need an imaginary one. I knew I had to convince Ellen that homeschooling Lolly wouldn't be right.
He didn't tell me I was wrong. He never criticised me. He was really sweet, trying to be tactful, trying to protect my feelings.
I signed Lolly up for a play group, just a couple of mornings a week to begin with.
He even took time off work to come with us, and he'd sit next to me and hold my hand and softly say how much Lolly seemed to enjoy being with the other children. He was right, of course.
She agreed to go and look at the local primary schools, and we put Lolly's name down for the one we liked best.
The one he liked best.
Yeah, okay, the one I liked best. But I chose it because the headmaster encouraged arts and crafts.
The time we had left before she started school became really precious to me. And I wanted the three of us to savour every possible moment we could spend together. Bill was kind and understanding. He'd come home from work as quickly as he could, and he hardly ever went out with his mates.
I was always eager to get home to my perfect little family.
Occasionally, he'd meet his old uni friends for a pint or two.
I asked her to come with me, but she wouldn't.
I didn't want to embarrass you.
You would never embarrass me. I was always proud to be your husband.
I might do something to disgrace you, like talking with a gob full of cake. I wouldn't want you to be ashamed of me.
I was once. I've never told her. I would never hurt her by telling her that. I went for a job interview, a promotion, assistant director of finance. As I was leaving, the chief exec asked what my wife did. I was ashamed to say that she worked on the till at the local department store. So I lied. I said she had her own craft business. Well, it wasn't completely untrue, was it? Yeah, okay. It was a whopping great dirty lie. I didn't get the job. I was glad I didn't. I couldn't have lived with the guilt of keeping that lie going. I was ashamed of myself, not of her.
Some of his friends looked down on me. On our wedding day, I'd just popped into the ladies, and I was at the sink washing my hands when, from the cubicles behind me, I heard Bill's best man's wife talking to someone in the loo next door. She said Bill would get fed up of me soon enough, that we had nothing in common, that I was common, and I hadn't even got any O-levels. She looked a bit sheepish when she came out and saw me standing there. I said to her, "You're wrong, you know. Bill will always love me." She didn't say anything, just hurried out of there before I even had a chance to tell her that I had got O-levels, actually. She didn't even wash her hands, scutty mare. They don't teach basic hygiene at your precious uni, do they? I never told Bill. I wouldn't have hurt him like that. In our house, nobody could touch us in there. It was our special little world, full of love and happiness and joy. I didn't need anyone else. After the accident, Bill said I became fixated on Lolly.
She was holding on to Lolly too tightly. It wasn't healthy. And that was when the imaginary friends started to become a problem.
Bill was kind and patient, to begin with anyway.
I understood. It was a reaction to the trauma.
But he stopped being patient.
It went on for 5 years before I snapped.
He wasn't unkind about it. Only that once, last year. On Lolly's 9th birthday. I was wrapping the presents and preparing the table for our Lolly's birthday tea. I always put the presents in the centre, like so. Oh, Bill, you're home early. How lovely. Sit down, I'll go and finish the cake.
Ellen, stop.
What?
This? Why are the 4 places set?
You know why, silly. You, me, Lolly and Tina.
But there's not 4 of us, is there?
Bill, leave it, eh? Not today, please.
It has to stop. It's not real.
Do you think I'm thick? Of course I know Tina's not real. But she's our Lolly's best mate. He took hold of my shoulders and he was shaking me. And he kept screaming. It was horrible. I saw the rage, the fury in his eyes. I was terrified. I thought he was going to hit
her.
me.
Ellen, you all right?
I was never so grateful to have nosy neighbours.
Is Ellen?
He apologised to them. To them, mind, not to me and our Lolly.
I'm leaving, Ellen.
Don't. Bill, please don't leave. You'll ruin our Lolly's birthday.
I had to leave. I couldn't trust myself to be around her any longer.
I couldn't believe it. My Bill, my lovely, gentle Bill, who'd never even raised his voice to me in all those years. How could he have been so cruel?
I went to Mum's. I only meant to stay a few days. And then I realised how I'd been slowly suffocating in that house with Ellen. For the first time in years, I could inhale fresh air from the outside world without feeling guilty about it. I never meant to stay away so long.
I knew. The moment he walked out, I knew he wouldn't come back.
I want to go back. I want to tell her. I'm sorry I let you down. And I know what she'd say in that sweet, soft voice.
That's okay.
But it's not okay. I failed her. I failed to protect her.
I understand why you left. I know I'm not easy to live with. Most days even I don't want to live with me.
After the accident, they told me at the hospital, they said it might take a while for her to come to terms with it. They never said it could take years. She spent all her time cleaning and organising the house. We had pork chops every Monday and chicken casserole every Tuesday. Just after Lolly's 7th birthday, I took Ellen to see a psychiatrist.
He dragged me to see a psychiatrist.
Anxiety attacks, obsessive compulsive behaviour. This will help you sleep.
It didn't.
She hadn't slept for years, not properly. So we went back to see the psychiatrist.
He dragged me back to see the psychiatrist.
Depression. See if these help.
They gave me a dry mouth and a big tongue. I used to chuck them down the loo when Bill wasn't looking.
I knew she wasn't taking them. So we went back to the psychiatrist.
He dragged me.
All right. I dragged her back to the psychiatrist. You need to go through the grieving process, Ellen. You need to find some acceptance.
When my husband started talking like the psychiatrist, I knew our marriage was in trouble.
Schizophrenia. Don't challenge her beliefs.
I never had. I didn't. But I think that psychiatrist was wrong. I wish now that I'd challenged Ellen right from the start.
Personality disorder.
I wish you'd make your bloody mind up about my diagnosis. And you can stick your prescription up your...
Post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm referring you to a psychotherapist.
I've been seeing that psychotherapist for an hour every Thursday afternoon for more than 3 years now. Mostly we just sit in silence. She watches me and I watch the traffic outside. I asked her once if she thought she was defrauding the NHS. I mean, she's been paid to do nothing for an hour. She said I seemed angry, and did I want to talk about my anger issues? She said I was transferring my anger onto her, and she said that was okay. She thought it was healthy for me to release my anger. I just thought she was a lazy mare. Do you see this photo? This is my favourite picture of Lolly. I took it on her 4th birthday.
The day of the accident.
We were all excited that morning.
Ellen wanted to make it a really special birthday. Lolly's last birthday before she started school. I booked the day off work to be with them. Well, almost. I had to go in first thing. I had an interview for promotion.
He did ask them if he could have a different date for the interview, but they said they couldn't rearrange. I knew how important that promotion was to Bill. He'd only been there an hour or so. We'd still have the rest of the day together, the 3 of us.
And this time, if they asked about my wife, I wasn't going to lie about her. I was going to tell them, loud and proud, that she was the best mum and the best wife in the world, and that she even did a couple of evenings a week on the tills at the department store, just to let me have some quality time with our daughter.
So that morning, me and Lolly drove Bill to his interview, dropped him off, grabbed a few things from the shops, went home, made the cake, bunged it in the oven and rushed back to pick Bill up.
The interview didn't start on time. The chief exec was running late.
He wasn't there waiting like he should have been. Lolly was laughing and giggling and calling, "Hurry up, Daddy." I thought it was cute and I took that photo on my phone so I could show it to Bill later. And when he still didn't appear, I thought about ringing him and saying, "Forget the promotion, what about the cake?"
Sorry, I'm late.
Bill, the cake could be ruined.
She wasn't angry.
I was angry.
She wasn't angry. She was never angry.
Okay, I wasn't really angry. But I was mean. I didn't ask him how the interview had gone.
It didn't matter that she didn't ask about the interview. Lolly's birthday was more important. I knew she'd ask later, that night, once Lolly was in bed.
While he was chattering nonsense to our Lolly, I put my foot down.
She was doing 38 in a 40.
This kid suddenly appeared from nowhere, right there in the middle of the road.
What was he doing there? He should have been at school.
I swerved hard, trying to avoid him. I heard myself scream, "Oh shit!" And I remember thinking I didn't want those to be me dying words. I didn't want that to be our Lolly's last memory of her mother. And I don't remember anything after that.
I envy her not remembering. I remember every detail. It was like it happened in slow motion.
They told me I hit a truck coming the other way before I wrapped the car round a lamppost. When
the car finally came to a halt, I looked over at Ellen and then at Lolly. Their cheeks were bloodless. I tried to reach them, but I couldn't move. And I looked out of what used to be the side window, and I saw that kid standing there open-mouthed, but unscathed. They put Ellen and Lolly next to each other on the ITU. And that night, when I sat in a wheelchair between them, with nothing worse than a broken ankle and a couple of cracked ribs, I thought that I would always remember that day as the worst day of my life. I was wrong.
They said I was unconscious for 3 weeks. One nurse told me I was lucky to be alive. thing to say, that.
I was lost without my Ellen. I needed her to open her eyes and give me her lovely sunshine smile and tell me it was all going to be okay. But she didn't. Mum was really good. She spent loads of time at the hospital sitting with Ellen.
She was waiting for me to die so she could marry him off to someone she approved of.
That's not fair.
I don't want to be fair. Life's not fair.
She was good to your mum and dad.
Yeah, me dad said that. He said Lorraine was their strength. He even compared her to Mother Teresa. She used to take them to the hospital canteen. She knew my mum and dad couldn't afford the hospital food every day, and she insisted on paying. Sometimes she'd bring them in finger food, like those little round pastry things with prawns in them.
She means vol au vents.
And those little cakes they serve in posh restaurants.
She means petit four.
And tiny little cucumber sandwiches with the crust cut off.
You're right, cucumber sandwiches.
She even had them round for dinner sometimes, and she'd give them duck or pheasant because she knew they'd never had it before.
And she wasn't being patronising.
No.
It was her way of being sympathetic.
Nice, that. Thoughtful. She was kind to me, too. I never thanked her, you know. Maybe I should call her.
I wish she would talk to Mum, even if she won't speak to me.
Of course, I won't call Lorraine. Me mum and dad still go round there for dinner sometimes. They sit there, the four of them, me mum and dad, Lorraine and Bill, comforting each other, supporting each other. Strange how a crisis can create the most unlikely alliances.
And tear apart the strongest. After the accident, she wasn't my Ellen anymore. Except when we made love. In those tender moments when it was just the two of us, I could almost believe that she belonged to me again. But there was a frailty to it, to her.
It was beautiful and sad, all at the same time.
I used to think that maybe if I could just stay with her like that, just hold her in my arms forever, and love her and cherish her.
I wish he had held me in his arms forever. I wanted to keep him with me and Lolly, safe in our little house where we could shut out the rest of the world. But Bill was practical, a realist. Sometimes I wonder
if Lolly hadn't been an only child,
if we'd had more kids,
maybe things would have been different.
Maybe I'd have been different.
It was like she never quite regained consciousness. That bubble started shrinking around her, and I watched her slowly withering and fading, painful day by painful day. I wanted to take her hand and pull her back into reality, but reality just bounced off that bubble. Nothing real could penetrate it, not even me. And she locked our beautiful little Lolly in there with her.
He could have stayed.
I tried for a long time to live in that happy, mad world of hers. But I couldn't believe it, not like she did. I always knew it wasn't real.
When you're mad. When they give you that label, mad. People think you don't know. But I do know. And I'd love to take his hand and step back into reality with him. But I won't leave our Lolly behind. I'm her mother.
You'll always be her mother. Nothing will change that.
I can't. It'd always be there, glaring at us. Every time we looked at each other, we'd both be thinking it was my fault.
I never blamed you. Not for a moment.
I know you never blamed me. That doesn't stop me knowing the truth.
Everybody said it wasn't Helen's fault. It was an accident. The police said that.
The police lady was ever so kind. She sat with me for hours. It didn't help.
I felt guilty too.
You never said you felt guilty.
I was scared to put the idea in your head.
I blamed you anyway for a while.
If
you
I hadn't been chasing that promotion, we wouldn't have been on that road on that day at that time.
Of course, blaming Bill was only my way of trying to make him share some of the responsibility. Every Christmas morning, Bill said we should go to church with his mum like we used to.
She never would. I always felt bad because I knew that she knew what I was trying to make her do.
Go for a walk around the graveyard.
I had to bury our little girl at that church while Ellen was unconscious.
How could they do that? How could he do that?
I couldn't even carry her little coffin because I was on crutches. And all the time, I was terrified that Ellen might leave me too while I wasn't there at the hospital watching over her. She opened her eyes the day after Lolly's funeral. We didn't tell her straight away. She was too fragile. When we did tell her, she looked at me like she hated me.
I couldn't bear to think of my lovely girl all cold and lonely. I wanted to hug her close and rub a little back until she was warm again and kiss the roses back into her chubby little cheeks.
When she slept, which wasn't often, she had bad dreams.
Bill used to wrap his arms tight around me and he'd say,
"Shh, it's all right." But it could never be all right. We're suspended in time, in two different worlds.
I wish he was here. I know he'd come back if I asked him. But that's not right. He couldn't breathe while I had him trapped here.
She'll always be my soulmate, my kindred spirit. And I know she'd still do anything for me.
Happy birthday, Lolly. Close your eyes and make a wish.
Well, almost anything.